Alright, so we're going to talk about glass cutting. The first thing that you need to consider is safety.
But you're going to want a light-duty set of leather gloves, something that offers quite a bit of dexterity. And then you're also going to want a set of safety glasses to go ahead and keep shards of glass out of your eyes. Then here in a little bit, you're going to see how I do.
So now that we kind of went over that, we'll talk about how glass cutting works, kind of the shape of the tools, and how they function. This here kind of looks like your standard glass cutter. You have your glass cutting wheel up here. These little teeth here are actually used for chipping glass, chipping little chunks out of them. Like if you have something that doesn't fit quite right or whatever, it does leave a god-awful ugly spot, so I mean it's not for finish. Basically how it works is the wheel rubs along the top of the piece of glass and creates sort of a little valley there where it chips out a piece. I guess it's kind of micro-fracturing the glass and causing a straight tendency. I guess sort of to guide a crack is what it's actually doing. And so then when you snap the piece of glass down, it actually causes the glass to crack. And as long as you have a board on top of it, sort of like I demonstrate later in the video, it will break in a nice straight line. One thing that you do want to consider is you definitely want to do it on a board of some sort. I mean, you want the surface to be pretty flat, and you want it to be kind of soft. So that way if there's a piece of sand or, anything that's kind of going to cause the surface to not be fully flat, that it'll kind of sink in. If you try to do it on steel or some other surface, I mean, if there's anything that's hard on there, it's going to cause the glass to crack when you push down on it. If it's semi-soft, then you have just a little bit better luck. Okay, so let's explore glass cutting just a little bit. As I described, this is actually from the broken window, and I think it's a leftover piece that I cut off. Nah, it just looks broken. So you have this edge here that doesn't look really, really straight or square. One of the things that you can do is use this chipper right here. You just kind of chip off that edge right there.
I believe the glass chippers are actually usually used for straightening a cut that went off to the side, so the glass would already be scored in a straight line. As long as you put a board on top and a board on bottom, as I demonstrate later, you should never have that problem.
I've used them. You can take off little chips and make stuff a little bit straighter. You know what I mean? If you have something that's not too terribly critical. Otherwise, a person definitely just wants to go get another piece of glass. Other than that, I think that's pretty well the whole of glass cutting. Alright, so we're going to take a little bit of a look at sanding here. Again, I just have my broken, horrible piece of glass here. The edges after a piece of glass is broken, whether it's by an unguided break, like in the case of a baseball going through a window, or if it's through a guided break to make it straight, say to resize a pane of glass, the edges are always pretty sharp and would definitely have a tendency to cut you. My hands are pretty tough, so they don't bother me really anymore, but most people they do. And I imagine if I got desperate and grabbed a hold of a glass in the wrong time, it would probably still bother me. So what you can do is take a piece of sandpaper. This is 150 grit. Just kind of go over the edges like that. And it really takes the corner off. I mean, obviously, that's sand on glass, which makes for a pretty good surface to then grab a hold of. You can obviously sand it more, sand it less, but that edge there won't cut you anymore. This edge here, definitely so. So that's a trick to get a nice pane of glass if you have something that's going to be taken out, like in a picture frame or whatever. Obviously, if you're just doing a window on your house, then you're going to glaze that window into place. And so, the only way that thing's ever going to come out of there is if it's broken. In which case, somebody better be wearing gloves anyway. Good evening, YouTube. Star Spangled Clothing here. I'm finally getting around to cutting the glass for my picture frame. And so I've got kind of set up here. This is not the official way to do it, but this is how I've always done it, and it's always worked out pretty well for me. So I've taken my measurement, and I have a board laid down here to kind of offer a semi-soft surface and excuse me, a semi-soft surface, and then I got my straight edge right there that I'm going to run my glass cutter right along, so I get a nice straight line. I've already marked the piece. One piece of advice that I would give you if you're just trying your first few pieces of glass is that glass is a lot more sturdy than you think it is. I mean, a lot of times, it breaks suddenly, right? So a lot of people think that it's really not that sturdy or whatever, but I would say that definitely don't be afraid of breaking it. It's actually pretty strong, is what they actually call it. Instead of being hard, it's hard, but it's also strong, and it offers some resistance to breaking. So, don't be too scared of, flopping it around. It takes quite a bit to break a piece of glass. And then, usually you're supposed to have a pair of pliers or whatever to kind of cause it to break. I've never done that. I usually just kind of get it along a nice straight surface like this piece of board I already have. And just give it a little, kind of missed a little piece here. Give it a little snap. A lot of times it's good to have, I just remembered, a lot of times it's good to have another piece to kind of sit on top of it to offer a little stability so it doesn't try to break in more than one place. It tries to break along that straight line. So clamp these two together, give it a nice shove downwards, and there's one cut. This is just an old broken window.
Segment here, you'll notice that I eventually get tired of trying to mark it with a pencil. I think you do much better with a silver pencil for welding or something like that to mark the glass, but I don't have one of those. So at any rate, you'll see that at first I try to use the pencil. I can't really tell what I'm doing, and I end up taking the tape measure from the end, which is how I usually measure glass anyway. And anytime I've seen anyone else cut glass, that's how they do it also.
I'm actually going to try sanding it just a little bit. But there's the piece of glass in the picture frame. Needs a little cleaning, but I'm going to get a little bit of sandpaper and kind of try to round off the edges or whatever. So this piece of glass is a little bit safer to handle.